Hello, and welcome back to the It Feels Like Magic podcast. We are finally closing out season one of Four Kids Winx. Once again, I know I was pretty all over the place when it came to uploading, but I'm super glad we finally made it. Thanks so much for everyone who's joined me on this magical ride. This turned out to be a whole lot of fun. So, without further ado, music cue.
Watch the dub and open my mind. Believe in four kids. Time to unwind. Can it be true? Let's wait and see if four kids stuff can do everything amazing. Rewatching Winx, come join the fun. Rewatching Winx. Let's have some fun. Rewatching Winx.
Episode 25. The Great Witch Invasion. Before we get into my notes for this episode, let's start off with a quick summary so that we're all up to speed. All that's left for the Tricks to take over is Althea. But on the bright side, Flora finally manages to turn Murda back to normal. Meanwhile, Sky searches magics for survivors. Bloom is on her own journey. She follows Daphne's voice and comes to a realization. Daphne helps her realize that she never lost her powers to begin with. So now, with reignited powers, Bloom and Sky reunite. And just in the nick of time, too, because the final battle is making its way towards Althea. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about the episode, so let's go ahead and just dive right in. These are our last two episodes, guys. One thing I really love about this episode, which is something that Four Kids consistently does, and I've noted before, is they like to make a bunch of dialogue happen off screen. So you'll hear a character talking, but you won't actually see them. So they're basically just making use of extra cuts in order to further whatever dialogue they want to add in. And this time around, there was tons of that for the Tricks. The Tricks talk for a long time while they are still off screen in the beginning of the episode. And honestly, I'm kind of here for it. A lot of the banter that they had this time around, as always, was super fun while still being threatening at the same time somehow. One of my favorites, which is one of the more silly lines, was when Stormy tells Icy,
"You so rule, Icy."
And Icy's response to that is,
"You bet I do."
I'm not going to explain that. I'm sure the lines speak for themselves at this point. Moving on ahead a little bit, though, let's talk about Murda. This was actually quite a bit more serious, and yet not at the same time than I thought it'd be. I'll explain. The Winx are, well, at least most of the Winx, are ready to give up on Murda. Musa says,
I think it's time to go find her a nice sunny pumpkin patch.
and Stella adds on,
Yeah, at least that way she'll be among friends.
and rightfully so. Flora is the only one who doesn't give up when everyone else basically wants her to become squirrel food. And as already mentioned, Flora is able to turn Murda back, so thank God for that. I can't imagine what was going on through her head when she heard all of that because she was still conscious and could understand everything. So she heard Musa and Stella say that she should just be given up on. Shortly after this, we get another hilarious encounter. Mr. Mopey himself, Riven, shows up to Althea, and apparently he's there to confess. It's been a long time, so I can't remember if he does the same thing in the original, but he is in Four Kids' version. And I gotta say, this is probably the most hilarious and awkward confession scene I have ever seen in a series. And I've made it pretty abundantly clear on my channel. I have seen a lot, like a frightening amount of romance series before, so that is saying something. So I'll just go ahead and quote Riven himself, I guess. I may edit in his lines in post. We shall see. So Riven's confession goes along the lines of,
Oh, listen, they don't teach us how to do this in heroics class, but I gotta say I really like you, and now I gotta go. Bye.
and on top of that, the scene just ends with Musa saying, huh? And then it cuts to the super depressing magic scene. So I have no idea what happened in the writing process here. It is so uncomfortable and rushed, out of place. There's no time to react to it. All we get is, huh? From Musa. Same here, honestly. And then we get a complete tonal shift that just whacks you in the face because then it goes to what I believe to be one of the darkest moments in Winx Club history immediately after that. So, personally, if I were in charge, and I guess having to adhere to 4Kids' weird editing style where they switch things around, I would have at least tried to make that switch a little bit easier myself personally. But, maybe they're rushed for time. I don't know. But the end result is hilarious, but not very effective, unfortunately. Since we're on the topic, let's go ahead and talk about the magic scene. So, I kind of made a little bit of a blunder in my darkest moments of Winx video. I was not sure what was going on with the citizens of Magix. You can see them seemingly cocooned and frozen in mid scream in fear. And it's honestly really eerie and creepy to look at. And I wasn't sure if a rainbow bit the bullet or not and had them die because they have killed off characters before. So honestly, I saw it as a possibility. But apparently, there's a very, very brief scene that shows that the citizens are back to normal, and I did spot it in my 4Kids rewatch, so I was wrong about that. But regardless, the scene is treated as if the citizens are completely hopeless, and you don't know if they're gonna be okay or not. This version I see does confirm that they're in a deep sleep, which unfortunately does sort of take away from things even before we get to fully experience it. And as I feared, when Sky sees the wreckage of Magic City, it's not as impactful as the original by a long shot. I'm surprised they even kept it in, honestly. But yeah, the music just doesn't hit the same and they speed through it so quickly. It's a lot faster than the original. They really let you soak it in that Sky's trying his hardest to look for someone, anyone that's still alive and well. And he's searching every single corner of the city. So it drags on for some time, but that didn't happen here. And then on top of that, I've already mentioned this, but the music in the original is actually one of my favorite pieces that I've ever heard in a score before. I'll start playing it now so you know which song I'm talking about. It's one of the most hauntingly beautiful songs I've ever heard before. And I know that's like a high bar to try to reach up to, but yeah, the music that 4Kids added just doesn't even feel half as impactful. I am gonna give them kudos that they did try their best to include this really dark scene in their own way. But if you want to see this scene actually be super impactful and emotional, then I'd have to recommend the original at this point. If you haven't seen it for whatever reason, then I really, really recommend it. It's in the same episode, episode 25, and I believe it is also towards the beginning. Now let's skedaddle over to Bloom. So, as I brought up in the beginning, Bloom is on her own journey. She meets with Daphne. Now, something that is different from the original is that 4Kids explicitly says that Daphne is inside of Bloom, including the time when Farragonda astral projected her, and we got to see the crown of Sparx or tiara of Sparx, whatever they ended up naming it. So basically, all this time, Daphne has been calling out from within Bloom. And I guess that also means that Lake Chrysalis, which is the 4Kids version of Lake Rocaluce, doesn't actually exist, or at least in the way that Bloom sees it currently. which I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like it's an interesting take, and it honestly makes me feel like Four Kids may be alluding to the fact that Daphne is indeed dead, which is surprising. I guess I'll have to stay tuned for that, but it's just different. So, once again, the more you know. I also really liked the way that they played into Bloom's insecurities in the Four Kids version. One line that is said here is that Bloom doesn't know if she's Earth Girl or Princess of Sparx. And I feel like that's a really simple but impactful summary of Bloom's entire character in season one, honestly. She feels completely like a fish out of water. She does not belong at all and has had many struggles because of the fact that she's just the Earth Girl. And now all of a sudden she's thrown in with a royalty, and not just any royalty, the princess of a dead planet. That's a lot to take in. This is not a singular occurrence, but I will admit my eyes did get a little watery during this scene, and others I will mention, because it feels like magic starts playing during Daphne's talk with Bloom. And it's when she's telling her that Bloom is Bloom and who she is can never be taken away from her. She is the sum of all of her experiences, which once again, I loved the dialogue. And I kind of ended up naming this podcast on a whim because I haven't seen the Four Kids version. I think when I named it, I had only seen maybe the first 3 episodes. So that's what I was going off of. And you'll see more as these episodes continue, but it looks like I could not have chosen a better name for the podcast. I just chose it because I liked the song and I felt like the line was fitting because it does feel like magic being able to revisit something so important to me in a completely new way. And I love how Four Kids ends up using this theme as well as some others in order to tell their story. So it seems like it feels like magic is really tied into Bloom's identity and how she's still discovering magics and just the magical world around her as someone who's just from Earth. We also get Bloom's theme, which I think I've also mentioned a few times. It's basically just the opening, which they've played many, many times throughout the series, but it only occurred to me recently that it was tied to Bloom specifically. And I thought that was a really cool idea because you get to hear the theme evolve over time as Bloom becomes more and more confident in herself. Later on in the episode, we get another super funny exchange with the Tricks. Icy says that she answered a quiz in Teen Witch that said, "What would you do if you took over the whole universe?" And Icy's answer,
I wrote, "You'll find out soon enough, loser."
and then she just turned it in, which has gotta be quite the power move. I don't think they were expecting that answer. Also, during this scene was something that was really funny to me. The water nymphs, or the undines, I think they were called at one point, see the Tricks and they're panicking because they're like, oh my god, the army of darkness is taking the invisible road. Althea will never be expecting that. And I was just utterly confused when I heard this. Like, first off, what do you mean, invisible road? This doesn't seem particularly special at all in any sort of way. And if there was an invisible road, I think the opposing force would expect you to take it when you're in mid-battle. So, yeah, this little addition by Four Kids just felt completely unnecessary, but in a super funny way. Moving back to Bloom and Sky, though. Sky has like the funniest bit of dialogue that I have ever heard from him in this like entire season. He's fighting against the rot monsters, and when he's, I think, cornered, he ends up spouting,
Look, guys, I didn't mean to crash your party. You probably just want to rot out, maybe watch each other decompose or what have you. So I'll just be on my way.
I'll just leave you guys with that one. That was probably one of the funniest pieces of dialogue I've just heard, period, in this season so far. But luckily for Sky, he gets saved by Bloom, and her musical theme is finally complete. You can hear it loud and proud. And I could not be more proud of her in this moment, honestly. She saves Sky with her newly regained dragon fire, and even shouts,
Nobody messes with my boyfriend! Ah!
but when confronted with that statement, Bloom just says that she wanted to shout something in the midst of battle, like trash talk, you know? And then there's a really awkward pause. So I don't know what's going on with those two. I could have sworn they made up, but then Four Kids has this little tidbit of knowledge that they grant us. I don't know. I just don't know. That's most of what I wrote down. One other quick thing is I really liked how Farragonda was put in charge, and one of her lines was, "Fairies don't give up on each other," which, on paper doesn't sound like much, but considering just how big the stakes are, it really gets the adrenaline pumping for what's about to come. And we get hit with another to be continued yet again. But luckily for us, we're gonna cover the next episode as well, the final episode, even. So stay tuned for that.
We are Winx.
Episode 26, Fire and Ice. As always, here's a quick description of the episode so that we're all on the same page here. The final battle is here. Icy makes sure to finish off what her ancestors started by getting rid of Bloom once and for all. But after an arduous battle, Bloom finally defeats Icy and the army of darkness disappears for good. The day is saved and everyone starts rebuilding. The episode closes off with one last final hurrah before the next school year begins. And let's not waste any time. Let's go through these notes that I jotted down. So, first things first, Farragonda was made commander in chief, and I could not be happier about that. Honestly, like all of the Company of Light is pretty cool, but Farragonda deserves to get some spotlight and be featured in all the action that's been going on these past few episodes. So I'm glad to see her taking the helm, and she does a good job, gosh darn it. And once again, there was a march version of Althea's school song playing while Farragonda is commanding everyone and trying to give everyone the inspiration they need to fight back. And that was just a really cute touch. While all of this is going down, the tricks could not be more unserious, yet serious at the same time. They're going on their merry way to take over Althea. And while they're on their thrones and off screen most of the time, they're trying to decide who's going to be in charge of what school. And the lineup so far is Stormy with Althea, and I guess that leaves Icy with Cloud Tower. And there's actually a cool callback to this line. I totally did not see that coming. It happens pretty fast too, like maybe 2-3 minutes after that whole exchange. Stella takes one look at the tricks and says,
Oh, wow! Check out their taste in thrones! Can you imagine what they'd do if they redecorated this place?
and this is like immediately after the tricks are talking about redecorating. So I really liked that. I actually don't see a callbacks like that in shows like this. Really, I feel like I've only seen it in songs and stand-up comedy, maybe also like some movies, like kind of weird lineup, I know, but I've never seen it in a series like this. At least maybe not an animated show like this within the same episode too, and as a joke. Normally when there's callback lines, it's not for comedy's sake, but yeah. I just was not expecting that. I didn't take 4 Kids for the type to circle back with a joke like that, but good job on them, I guess. It made me laugh, and it was tied in a nice little bow. We also get a nice foreshadowing of what's to come later on down the road with Winx Club. Apparently, the Tricks are all sharing the dragon fire, and Icy asks, but pretty much demands, Darcy and Stormy give her their share of the dragon fire. And I just found that really funny because it reminded me of the whole hoopla that was going on with Blue Mix and that sort of thing. So yeah, at this point, Icy and Bloom end up battling one-on-one, and we're kind of left with the rest of the characters. And we get an interesting exchange during this time. Sky and Riven are kind of just going off about like how amazing and awesome Bloom is, which feels actually like really out of character for this series. I don't know why. I know it's a running joke within the Winx community, but if anything, I feel like Bloom has been the punching bag in this first season of 4 Kids. So to get this compliment match between Sky and Riven is like really off-putting to me. And then we also see a side of Riven that we haven't before. He says, with that kind of power, you better treat her right. Which, if you look into it, is kind of an insight into the way that his mind works. So, if we're taking into account all the things that he's done previously in the season, then it looks like you have to earn Riven's respect by being powerful. And if you are powerful, then that means that he's going to treat you better. Which I don't know if that's what Forkis was trying to imply, but honestly, it sort of makes sense for Riven's character since he's kind of, I don't know, just standoffish and feels like the world is out to get him. And I don't know, I just feel like his character type fits with that. And I guess it also indirectly means that he thinks Misa is super powerful, which is cool. And I'm also really liking how 4Kids seems to be following through with Riven's character growth because he was an absolute tool and jerk in the earlier episodes. But ever since he was imprisoned by the Tricks and went through that whole thing where he realized how wrong he was and wanted to make up for it, ever since then, he's just been a delight to be around, which is really weird to say, honestly, but I'm so scared, guys, because as I've said many times, I actually do like Riven's character. I just feel like he's wasted potential. And 4Kids seems to be agreeing with me so far and wanting him to change for the better. But based off of the story beats that happen later on, I don't think it's going to last, which is really, really sad. I also really liked how 4Kids kind of made Icy's motivation make more sense in this version too. I feel like in the original, she just didn't like Bloom for whatever reason, and because Bloom got in her way and just happened to have the dragon fire, dragon flame, I'm getting confused now, just because she had that, they were kind of enemies. And it just continued and continued and continued for seemingly no reason because we already got past that point. And I don't know, it just felt like a lot of hatred for no reason. Whereas in this version, Icy says that she wants to finish the Coven's job of destroying Sparx completely, and Bloom is the sole survivor, so that's why she's trying so hard to get rid of her. And I thought that was actually something that improved Icy's character. So once again, kudos to the 4Kids writers for that one. Right before Bloom finishes her fight with Icy, we get another silly line, but this time from Saladin, which I wasn't expecting. He ends up saying,
All the monsters are disappearing. It can only mean one thing. Bloom's kicking Icy's booty. With
a super posh sounding elderly voice, which is one of the most surreal things I have ever listened to. I have no idea what 4Kids' obsession with the word of booty is, but it has popped up so many different times in this dub, not only like in the spoken dialogue, but I think even in some of the songs too. Like, I'm pretty sure it's in Mean Girls Rule, right? So, yeah, that's not a word I hear outside of from a like 6-year-old. So I don't know why they're inserting it so much, but here it is, I guess. So, as per Saladin, he is right. Icy is defeated, so everyone is about to celebrate. During this joyous occasion, we get yet another really, really awkward moment between Sky and Bloom. Basically, it leads up to their I think first kiss. I can't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. It leads up to a kiss, but the way that they transition, once again, is super, super uncomfortable. Before then, you can't even tell that it's going in that direction. Sky shouting,
You gotta give me 5.
but before he even finishes saying the word 5, then there they are. And I don't know, you kind of just have to listen for yourself. I probably edited in so you will get to hear what I mean, I guess. But man, the pacing is so incredibly just off. And for what's supposed to be an important moment, I could not take it seriously one bit yet again. During all this, we also get some fun stuff that goes on with the side characters. Griffin is still mad about not recognizing the fake transcripts that the Tricks apparently made because they weren't allowed to go to school, or magic school at least, because they were descendants from the Witch Coven. And because of that, Griffin says that she's thinking about retiring, which when I heard that, like that hit me. I did not want her to retire at all. I love her. I don't want to see her go. But then, after she makes that statement, she says that she always wanted to open a bed and breakfast in her realm. I don't even know it was possible to hear the word bed and breakfast in a series like this one. It took me completely off guard, especially since it's so seemingly out of character for her. But luckily enough, Farragonda is able to convince Griffin that it wasn't entirely her fault and that she should still keep her job. Pretty much right after that, Nut says that he wants to stay at Althea since, he was being mistreated by the Tricks and all. And they also treat this with kind of like a modern twist, so to speak. Griffin calls it a wonderful intercultural experience, which once again, because of the fact that we're talking about magical creatures, it took me off guard, but I get what they were trying to get across. It was just silly to me because of the way that it's presented with Nut. We got a little bit of a bummer after that. Murda says that she wants to be an exchange student in Althea. I can't remember if that happened in the original or not. Like, I know she ends up becoming one, but I don't think it's ever explicitly said. I don't know. I could be wrong. But unfortunately, because of this, Lucy abandons Murda. Which, that made me really sad when I saw that. Oh my god, I completely forgot that she did that. I think she does eventually come back. I don't know if it's because of like just oversights from the animators or the writers just not caring. But here at least it seems pretty final, which is why I was so glad that Flora was there to cheer Murda up because she's such a sweetheart and she did her gosh darn best in order to bring Murda back. And honestly, I kind of like the dynamic that Flora and Murda have together. They're both kind of similar, honestly, if you think about it. And they went through a lot together. So honestly, a kind of missed opportunity that they didn't become closer friends in the original. My voice is kind of getting tired, if you couldn't tell already, and I also have limited time, so I'm gonna kind of speed through the rest of my notes here. We got another final line. Griffin says that witches don't do prom, they crash prom. And the Tricks, instead of whatever camp they were sent to originally, are sent to do-gooders camp, where everything is terribly cute. which is a perfect end for them because I bet that is their worst nightmare. We also got some fun for kids censorship. Saladin, I'm pretty sure, is drinking a beer, but they call it a milkshake and they go out of their way to say that it is a milkshake. Saladin says,
It's no secret that I love milkshakes.
and he's told to not worry about his cholesterol. So, yeah, therefore, kids goes again in order to make everything as family friendly as possible when the truth is right in front of us. Truly a jelly filled donut moment. And as far as silliness goes, that's actually it. The episode finally concludes and closes out with It Feels Like Magic, which, once again, it made me tear up. I had no idea this song would end up meaning so much to me, but just the way that it was used throughout the series, the lyrics, what it means for Bloom's character, and the fact that I ended up naming the podcast after it, made it feel all the more special. And I cannot imagine a better way to finish off season 1.
It's not hard to believe. Oh, I don't know what it is, but there's something new that keeps on flowing through me, and it feels like magic. And I never felt like this.
And that's everything. I'm super glad we ended on a high note. I laughed so many times throughout these last 2 episodes. And like I said, my eyes even got a bit watery too. I can see why this dub is so dear to so many people now. Obviously, there were a lot of changes to the story, so it may not be everyone's cup of tea. But for what it is, it's a pretty fun time. I'll be going over my complete thoughts on season 1 as a whole on my YouTube channel, Rosy Vision, for anyone who's interested. As for the next 2 seasons, yes, I would love to cover them. I am determined to see this project through to the end. However, I didn't like how sporadic I was with uploading new episodes, so there will be a bit of a break. How long, I'm not sure yet. I want to get as much of a backlog going as possible. That way I don't have to panic about recording on time as much. I am not going to promise a regular schedule since I just don't trust myself to work that way. However, there should at the very least be less of a break between episodes in the future. So for now, this is goodbye, but I'll be back as soon as I can with season 2. Goodbye for now, and thanks for listening.